You are literally paying to go out of business every time you roll your eyes at a customer for their taste in books. It is a slow and painful way to watch your bank account hit zero while you tell yourself you are just too smart for the market. Imagine walking into a shop that smells like old leather, expensive dust, and a very thick layer of unearned superiority. The owner sits behind a desk that looks like it belongs in a museum, staring at you like you just tracked mud across his soul. This is the story of how one man managed to lose thousands of dollars in a single afternoon just because he wanted to feel special. It is a lesson in how your ego is usually the most expensive thing you own, especially when you're trying to run a business. We are going to look at why being a gatekeeper is a failing strategy and how a single interaction can sink a reputation forever. If you have ever felt judged by a shop owner, you know exactly how this story starts and why the ending feels so good. Let's talk about a man named Arthur who owned a tiny, very serious bookstore in the middle of a very busy town. Arthur did not just sell books. He believed he was the protector of the written word against the tides of modern garbage. His shelves were filled with books that were very difficult to read and even more difficult to enjoy, but they looked great on a shelf. He didn't stock anything with a bright cover or anything that might be described as a fun read for a weekend at the beach. To Arthur, if a book was popular enough to be a movie, it was probably a sign that civilization was ending very soon. One rainy Tuesday, a woman walked into the shop looking a bit damp, but very excited to find a specific gift for her niece. She walked up to the counter and asked Arthur if he had the latest installment of a very popular fantasy series for teenagers. You know the kind of series where there are dragons on the cover and the titles always involve words like fire, wings, or thrones. Arthur didn't just say he didn't have it. He let out a long, dramatic sigh that seemed to last for 3 entire minutes. He looked at her over his glasses as if she had just asked him to sell her a bag of trash instead of a book. He told her that he did not stock children's toys in his establishment and that he only focused on what he called real literature. He went on a short speech about how people these days have lost their way and only want to read things that require no brain power. The customer stood there, blinking, because she just wanted to buy a $20 book for a birthday party that was happening later. Arthur suggested she try reading a translated set of Russian poems instead, which he promised would be much better for her niece's development. The woman didn't argue, she didn't get angry, and she certainly didn't buy the book of poems that no 12-year-old would ever touch. She simply said thank you, turned around, and walked right back out into the rain while Arthur smiled, feeling very proud of himself. He thought he had stood up for art, but what he actually did was hand his competitors a huge pile of free money. The woman didn't stop looking for the book just because Arthur was mean to her. She just went to the big store 3 blocks away. She walked into the chain store, found the book in 5 seconds, and was treated like a human being by a teenager working the register. While she was there, she realized they also had the coffee she liked and a very comfortable chair she could sit in for a minute. She ended up buying the book, 3 other novels for herself, and a gift card for her sister, spending over $100. Arthur sat in his dark shop feeling intellectually superior, while his neighbor was actually doing the work of being a business owner. This is the fundamental problem with the gatekeeper mindset that so many small business owners fall into when they get too comfortable. A gatekeeper thinks their job is to decide what people should like instead of providing what people actually want to buy from them. When you treat your customers like they are stupid, you are telling them that their money is not good enough for your register. The reality is that every business exists to solve a problem or fulfill a desire for the person walking through the front door. If you make that person feel small, they will find someone else who makes them feel seen and valued as a customer. The customer in our story didn't just buy that one book somewhere else. She made a very important decision about her future habits. She realized that shopping at the local store was a chore that came with a lecture she never asked for in the first place. She pulled out her phone and downloaded an app that would allow her to order any book she wanted without ever seeing Arthur again. She set up a recurring order for her book club and signed up for a membership that gave her free shipping and points. Arthur didn't just lose $20 that day. he lost the lifetime value of a customer who reads 2 books every single month. If you do the math, losing a customer who spends $50 a month means you just threw away $600 a year. Over the next 10 years, that one moment of arrogance cost Arthur $6,000 in direct revenue from a single person. Now, imagine he does that to one person every week because he thinks he is the smartest guy in the room at all times. Suddenly, you are looking at a loss of over $300,000 over a decade just because you couldn't be polite. Arrogance is a luxury that very few businesses can afford in a world where everything is available at the click of a button. The internet has leveled the playing field, which means the only thing small shops have left to offer is a great experience. If your experience is worse than a cold piece of glass on a smartphone, you have officially lost the reason for your existence. Arthur's shop started to look more like a graveyard for books than a place where people went to discover new worlds and ideas. He noticed the foot traffic was dropping, but instead of checking his attitude, he blamed the internet and the lack of culture. He told his few remaining friends that people just don't appreciate quality anymore, and that the world is becoming a very shallow place. Meanwhile, the woman he insulted was telling all the parents at the birthday party about her weird experience at the local shop. She described how the owner mocked her for buying a popular series and how he tried to force a book of poems on her. Word spreads fast in a small community, especially when that word is about someone being a jerk to a well-meaning neighbor. The other parents decided they didn't want to be judged either, so they stopped stopping by to browse on their way home from work. They started sharing links to online deals instead, and the local bookstore became a joke that people told at dinner parties. Every time Arthur opened his mouth to be elitist, he was digging a deeper hole for his business that he couldn't climb out of. He didn't realize that people don't buy products just for the items themselves. They buy them for how the purchase makes them feel. Shopping at an independent store should make you feel like you are part of a community and that you are supporting a neighbor. When that neighbor acts like he is better than you, the desire to support him evaporates faster than a puddle in the summer sun. Arthur's reputation was his most valuable asset, and he spent it like it was worth nothing until there was nothing left to spend. He eventually had to cut his hours because he couldn't afford to keep the lights on for the full day anymore. He sat in the dark, surrounded by his real literature, wondering why the world had moved on without asking for his permission. The tragedy is that he could have been the most successful man in town if he had just embraced the joy of reading in all forms. If he had stocked the popular series, he could have used the profits to buy even more of the rare books he actually loved. A smart business owner knows that the popular stuff pays for the passion projects that keep the soul of the shop alive. You sell the best sellers so you can afford to keep the poetry on the shelf for the one person a year who actually wants it. By refusing to sell what was popular, he ensured that he would eventually be unable to sell anything at all to anyone anywhere. This is the trap of the niche business that forgets it still needs to be a business first and a hobby second or third. You can be a specialist, but you can't be a snob, because snobbery is the fastest way to turn a customer into an enemy. The customer who was mocked ended up writing a review online that was shared hundreds of times by people in the neighborhood. The review wasn't mean. It was just honest about how uncomfortable the owner made her feel for simply asking a basic question. That one review did more damage than a year of bad sales because it warned away everyone who might have given the shop a chance. Modern retail is not just about having the item on the shelf. It is about the emotional connection you build with your community. If you break that connection, you are just a warehouse with higher prices and a much worse attitude than the big corporations. Arthur's story ends with a for-lease sign in the window, and a man who still thinks he was right even though he lost everything. He moved his books into his basement, where he can read them in peace without any pesky customers bothering him with their bad taste. The town now has one less shop, and the big online giant has a few thousand more dollars in its pocket every single year. It didn't have to be this way, but pride is a very heavy thing to carry when you are trying to keep a small business afloat. The lesson here is simple. Never let your ego get in the way of a sale, and never let your personal taste insult your customers. Your customers are the ones who pay your rent, buy your food, and allow you to keep doing what you claim to love so much. Treat them with the respect they deserve for choosing to walk through your door instead of just staying home on their couch. If you can do that, you will find that the world is a lot more welcoming than Arthur ever thought it could possibly be for him. The irony is that the popular series he hated so much actually inspired millions of kids to start reading in the first place. Some of those kids might have grown up to love his highbrow literature if he had been the one to give them their first book. He missed the chance to be a mentor because he was too busy being a judge, and that is the biggest loss of all in this story. Business is about growth, and you cannot grow if you are constantly cutting off the branches that you don't think look pretty enough. Every customer is a bridge to another customer, and every sale is a chance to prove that your shop belongs in the modern world. If you act like you are above the market will eventually show you exactly where you stand, which is usually outside. Arthur's empty shop is a reminder to every business owner that the customer's request is the most important thing in the building. Whether they want a classic or a comic book, they are looking for a connection, and your job is to provide that with a smile. The moment you stop smiling is the moment you should probably start looking for a new job that doesn't involve other people. Because at the end of the day, people will forget what you sold them, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And if you make them feel like a fool, they will make sure you feel the weight of a failing business until the very end. The woman who left Arthur's store that day is now the head of a local reading group that meets at a different cafe every week. They spend hundreds of dollars on books and snacks, but not a single cent of that money goes to a man who mocks his guests. Arthur sits alone with his prestige, while the rest of the world enjoys the stories that he thought were beneath his high standards. It is a lonely life to be the only person who is right in a room full of people who are actually having a good time. If you want to stay in business, learn to love what your customers love, or at least learn to respect the fact that they love it. That respect is the foundation of every successful brand, from the smallest bookstore to the biggest tech company in the world today. Without it, you are just a person standing in a room full of paper, waiting for the lights to go out for the last time. Don't be an Arthur. Be the person who helps a customer find their next favorite story, no matter what kind of cover it has. Because a book that is actually read is always better than a masterpiece that stays on the shelf because the owner was a jerk. True literature is anything that moves a person, and true business is anything that makes a customer want to come back again. If you can manage to do both, you will never have to worry about a for-lease sign or a reputation that keeps people away. The world is full of choices, so give people a reason to choose you that has nothing to do with your ego and everything to do with them. It is much more profitable to be kind than it is to be cool, and it is much more sustainable to be open than closed. Arthur learned that too late, but you have the chance to learn it right now before you lose your next big lifetime customer. Keep your eyes on the register and your heart open to the community, and you might just find that popularity isn't such a bad thing. After all, a popular shop is just a shop that people actually like to visit, and that sounds like a pretty good goal to me. So next time someone asks for something you think is silly, just remember the cost of a sigh and the price of a smirk. It might be the most expensive noise you ever make in your entire life, so choose your words very carefully before you speak. Your business depends on it, and your future self will thank you for not being the person who let pride ruin everything you built. Take a breath, find the book, and realize that every sale is a victory for your dream, no matter what the title is. That is how you win in the long run, and that is how you keep the lights on for years and years to come. Watch this next video to see how to handle difficult customers without losing your mind or your profit margins.